All right, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning. For those in the West Coast, it's 9:04 a.m. For those in the Mountain Time Zone, it is 10:04 a.m. For those in Central Time Zone, where I'm going to be this week in New Orleans at SEAA, we're having a pub crawl on Sunday night, a restaurant crawl at noon or 12:30 on Wednesday afternoon this coming week. If you haven't signed up, email me at nmanahan@paprotech.com. I will make sure you get the invite. If you're going to be in New Orleans, come hang out with us. We want to do that for sure. And of course, here in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I am standing in my home office, getting ready to bring you, I hope, some really good content. It is just a little afternoon, and it is the middle of the week in our first week of June. We are staring down the end of the second quarter, and like we say every year, where the days go by, we are nearly fully halfway through 2024. I hope that you're meeting all your goals. I hope you're exceeding all your goals. Hope you're going to a whole new level. Today, we are going to be simply discussing how we can close deals with large restaurants. But before I go too far, let me ask you a couple things. One, love it if you would put some comments in our comments section here on YouTube. Just jump in there if you have any comments. But if you specifically have questions, I'm going to be looking for questions that I'll be answering at the end. But if you put a Q by it, I don't know, we have a few of you watching right now live, but if you put a Q by it, that helps me be able to see it quickly that it's a question, but I'll be engaging. I'm the only person here in my little home studio right now, so I've got to kind of monitor what's going on. But hopefully we can do that. Just put a question there. But the main question we're answering today, really, when I put this together last week and I was starting to put the thing, I called it closing deals with large restaurants. Well, it's not just that. It is, I was just realizing I'm a little out of frame there. Let me bring myself in frame there. But closing deal with large restaurants, we're asking a bigger question. We're asking, is it worth it? Because what I've noticed here in the last few months is that, and these are real numbers, that we're not seeing as many restaurants as we used to have. And we've done a lot of focusing on restaurants this year. At PPT, we changed our logo last December, and we launched our POS Express in January. We launched a whole new POS and system that the POS pros are selling called Cluster that is coming here. And, it's been fun for me. I've really enjoyed this because there's one thing that's true, okay? There's one thing that's really true. I love restaurants. It's something that's been in my blood for a long time. I love to watch how restaurants work. I love to watch shows about restaurants. The Bear is one of my favorite shows on television right now, whether it was Chef with Jon Favreau. I love trying new things. When I go to a new city, I love that I get to experience restaurants for the first time. And one of the things, one of my rules with my kids is that we go to a new restaurant, a new independent, meaning a single location, locally owned restaurant every month. That's our goal. We don't always hit that, but we're not always going to go to Chipotle. My kids they'd eat Chipotle, I think, every day, eventually wear out, but that's where they want to go every time. And I'm like, no, let's go experience the local restaurants. And I just love restaurants. They're so special to me. And, I hear you because for the last 6 months, I've really been working with you, a lot of you as partners, and working to connect with you. And I've realized something that unfortunately there's this two problem. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by the two problem is you guys are starting out when you're talking about restaurants and you say things like this: restaurants are, and then you say, well, they have too many moving parts. They take too much of my time. The two problem. They take too much support. And then lastly, sometimes they're too damn, however you want to say it, complicated. And they're too much work to be putting in. And you're just like, man, it's just not worth my time. And so what we've seen here at PayProTech is over the last 2 years, we are going up and to the right. You'll see that I sign my emails a lot of times. Our total growth has been astronomical, rocket growth because of you guys, because of our sales partners that are working across the United States, that are helping small and medium businesses across the U.S. You guys are doing a great job. But when it comes to restaurants, we're seeing less submissions than ever. It's a lower percentage. It's a higher number, but it's a lower percentage of our total deals. because I think you have a two problem. And for some reason, we've gotten into this world where, it's not worth the time for you. You don't think it's worth the money. But let me say, there's another obstacle that you're a lot of times going in, and I know it. This is what's happening. You're looking at the competition, and you're staring it down, and you're looking right at the competition. I see you doing this. Let me tell you, I see you, and you're getting scared. You're scared. You're not going to take that next jump. You're not going to make sure that, hey, I can help any restaurant. I can help any small and medium business. I can help anyone when it comes to their payment needs. And you get scared. And, we know what some of this competition is. In fact, I'll say it this way. There's an elephant in the room. And that elephant in the room, well, one of it goes by Toast. I chose a right picture for talking about Toast. And another one goes by Square, and there's others out there. But two of our competitors that are selling into our markets that are beating us time after time when it comes to selling to restaurants. But I want to come back to you today and say, restaurants are worth it, and you can close large restaurants. We have closed, just with our cluster initiative, and we've closed a lot, 100 plus restaurants, most of them fitting into the big restaurants. And that's what I'm going to tell you a little bit here right now. Why big restaurants? All right. Big restaurants are sometimes what we get scared of. We say they're too complicated. We say they take too much support. They take too much work. The onboarding is way too much. And we just keep that two problem just keeps coming up. And Toast owns all the large restaurants, or Square's in there. And I was just at National Restaurant Association. Square and Toast, they actually were right next to each other with giant, I don't know what they were, probably 40 by 80 booths with multiple stories. And they're out there. In fact, you come into the National Restaurant Association. It was a great time, me coming with Ben Weckersheim and Greg and Kurt, a couple of our partners. Matt Proctor was there from the POS Pros, and we're walking through. And as you enter the McCormick Place, the large convention center there in Chicago, hopefully next year come. We'll talk about that more. You can hear more about what we've learned at POS Uncensored, which we do every Thursday with Matt Proctor. But as we walked into that show and we're going up the escalator and we're coming right up the escalator, what was sponsored was Square. And Square was telling us that they are big in restaurants. They're focused on restaurants. And I want to say this. There is a reason they're focused on restaurants. It's because they're profitable. They are profitable. And I want to just leave you just a little statistics before I walk you through how some of our partners are closing some of the biggest restaurant deals that we've ever seen with the highest profitability. But let me give you a couple reasons why I think you should focus on restaurants before I kind of show you how you can sell and close big deals with restaurants. And one of those reasons is that these numbers right here, 14V 40 plus. These are the numbers that when you look at the MCC codes across our portfolio and across all, this is not just with PaperTech, this is really across the whole industry. The average non-restaurant goes with a processor and a merchant services solution and a payments provider like yourself, as I like to call it, a paymentpreneur who's out there and selling to small and medium business. They average 14 months working with you. Some of them close in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. They are flipping. They have relationships with whoever's given the best deal, the best terminal, whatever, 14 months. For the last 5 years, we've been tracking these with others. It's over 40 months when it comes to restaurants. So these are real things. But when you're talking about big restaurants, it's not that it's just 14 months versus 40 months and the attrition is lower and the focus. But when you're talking about big restaurants, and I define big restaurants meaning you're going to make $1,000 a month. So in our edge world, that usually means somewhere around $100,000 of volume, which there's roughly about 200,000 restaurants in the U.S. that are doing $100,000 of volume. I don't know the exact number because if somebody knows where to look for that stat, I haven't been able to find it. I can find some of our numbers of how many restaurants there are. But what that really means is that's not 14 versus 40 months. It's $14,000 of a lifetime value how much that work is putting into versus over $40,000. So is it worth it? Well, you have to answer that question for yourself. But if I'm in your shoes and I'm sitting and working with you and I'm helping you guide and put your systems together to build your business, I would make sure that restaurants have a major emphasis. Certainly, it's not the only thing you should be selling to, but it is a profitable, real solution, and it's something that you should be spending some time in. And, we're seeing more and more that now is the time. And let me tell you why now is the time to be focusing on restaurants. One, restaurants are growing significantly. There's still a place. So you look at what Walmart and Target and Amazon are doing. They're having to lower their prices to try to get people to keep their spending up because spending is down across the markets. But the one place right now spending is holding as we're looking at an uncertain time. And we've come out of COVID and all that's gone on from 2020, 2021. We're looking and now we're, halfway through 2024 and people are still spending money on restaurants. They're still spending money on experiences. They're still spending money on getting out of their house. And it's the last thing they're holding on to. And so as we look at things like this, what we're doing is we're shocked. Okay. It got cropped a little bit. But, last week, bankruptcy for Red Lobster. And I personally chose this one, the Flavor Flav, and went into a Red Lobster, ordered the whole menu, and is trying to save the company. But why I think it's a good time right now to be involved in selling to restaurants is because now is the time that independent small restaurants are going to have the biggest opportunity because those who have overextended themselves, the big multi-location chains, the places like Red Lobster, the places like Starbucks, they're closing down because they're trying to tighten their belt and they're trying to increase the profit for stock owners. But the independent restaurants, the 20 or less locations, the family-owned independent mom and pop restaurants that we are serving across this incredible country of the United States are thriving because they look and see that restaurants are an opportunity. I realized I didn't have the slide up there, but Flavor Flav, he's helping out. Public Enemy coming on, helping out all the people when it comes to business. But I also think there's another reason why restaurants should be part of your focus. And I used Danny Meyer. He founded Shake Shack and Union Restaurants and done several restaurants, written an incredible book on hospitality and doing restaurants. But he says this: a restaurant should remove you from the mundane burdens of everyday life and transport you to another world. And what I think is happening as we look and watch what's happening in the economy, and we're still seeing spending. Our volume continues to grow. We're hitting records every month. We're very thankful. We're not taking that for granted. We're working hard to help you continue and establish your portfolios so your residuals continue to grow, your bonuses continue to grow, and you're hitting the goals that you want to for your families. But when it comes to restaurants, I think they're going to continue to be a place where people go for escape, and they're pillars within the community. And as you're looking to build your portfolio and build your payments business, having restaurants is extremely important for your reputation and who you're serving and who you're working with. And so absolutely, we encourage you to be part of restaurants. Now, that's all my setup. How many minutes did I take? Hopefully I've set a reason of why you should sell to restaurants, okay? Hopefully I've convinced you a little bit. I'd love to continue the conversation anytime about this and why I think you should sell to restaurants. But the next thing is we're really going to focus on is how, okay? How do we sell to restaurants? And so I have been working really diligently with multiple of our partners, helping them sell to restaurants these last 6 months, more than I ever have in my over 11 years here at PaperOtech. And I've been putting campaigns together, and this is something we're continuing to do. I'm working hand in hand with some of our largest office, some of our independents, and I don't want to say smallest, but people that are just independent, single ISOs by themselves versus some of those who are call centers, and trying to help them develop strategies and trying to figure out how do they reach restaurants. And I've been learning by watching and specifically working in our rollout of Cluster. Let's look at how we're actually being successful and where we're being successful. And so today I'm going to bring you some of that, and I'm going to keep doing this. Eventually, I'm working on one in a video. Probably won't be a live training, Q&A, but a video where we've been recording content with some of our partners telling their stories. And all these are based on those stories. And these are my kind of summaries of what's being successful for them. But this is what we're going after, is we're going to walk you through and hopefully help you understand the stories of why our partners are being successful. And let me start with number one, okay? Our partners say this, that the reason our partners are being successful at selling and closing big deals with restaurants, they're doing over 100,000, some under 800,000, some of them a huge amount. They're because they've learned how to focus on something that we've had since 2015. I see that's cropping my little slide there. But the POS Pros 2015, I kind of added another slide here with the new logo along together. What we're putting together is a technology to be able to support and sales enablement with the POS Pros. They have been using the POS Pros to help themselves. So why is that? It's because it's not just them. If you want to sell to restaurants, there are so many different types of restaurants. It's not just quick service restaurants, food trucks, and full service restaurants. There's so many different industries, things that are local, those different rules in every place. And you need a team behind you who's going to come alongside of you and behind you and support you and make sure that you are giving the best opportunities to the restaurants. Because really, when you're selling to restaurants, people have gotten scared because it's no longer you're selling payments. In fact, that's probably on the back burner. Certainly we're engaging on the conversation, but we're seeing in places, 15, 20, 25% in certain cities where we're already seeing that amount of restaurants already on edge pricing, already doing some type of dual differential pricing. And so we're not selling on, hey, we can come and save you money. We're coming and saying, hey, we can help you, and we're meeting a different need. And what we've learned is that, it's not one size fits all. In fact, a lot of times it feels like one size fits none. And so our solution has become here in the, here in the US and really through our POS Pros is that we have built relationships thanks to our team at POS Pros. You can see this. I took the screenshot last night of our most popular POS, all of them using and working in restaurants in some form, except for maybe Grosszilla and GiveHub there, you can see. But Cluster is obviously one we consider Cluster first. Hot Sauce, one of our long-term partners. Pay Anywhere is in some restaurants, but certainly a small quick service restaurants. It's really a elevated terminal replacement. Paradise POS, Mint. I'm not going to go through all these. We'll go through. But the POS Pros, having a team of people that are every day working with restaurants, a lot of them, that's the beauty of working with POS Pros. They're great in retail. They're amazing and exceptional in restaurant. Why? Because Matt Proctor worked for, I think, 20 years in restaurants. It's fun to go in. We were in Chicago. I was in Chicago just a couple of weeks ago with him, walking the streets. And he's like, oh, I have a friend that works there. I have a friend that works there. I once got offered a job to come work here when moving from Indianapolis to Chicago to work in this restaurant. Where, hospitality just kind of bleeds through him. He understands it. And several of the POS Pros have spent significant time working in the industry. And so that just brings your credibility even to the next level. And so what I say is, what is the number one reason our partners are being successful is they've learned how to work with the POS Pros. Now, don't use, because I've also seen this, and this is me calling out. I'm going to make sure it's just me on screen right now, okay? I've seen this close. As I've been monitoring more, we've built the POSlead.com, clusterlead.com. We've been managing it, Josh Brown and myself, for a long time. And so we see all the leads come in, but I wasn't always on active and following them all the way to fruition. For the last 6 months, I've been watching every lead, seeing where it goes, making sure we're getting the best. There are a few of you, and don't do this, that use the POS Pros kind of as your own prospecting. Hey, I drove by this restaurant, noticed their address, and looked up their phone number. Here's a lead. That is not a lead. The POS Pros are there to support you and help you. You're still leading. And if you want to be the best paymentpreneur that you can be, if you want to be out in the industry, growing your portfolio, hitting and moving up and to the right, you better make sure that you're building relationships. Don't just use the POS Pros as a way to kind of siphon through whether this is, you could sell to this restaurant. Build the relationship and then bring the POS Pros along with you to help you support. And you have a team, Brian Linke always says, I've got a guy. Well, you now have a team. Whether you're an office of 50 or you're just a single individual, you can walk into a restaurant and say, I have a team of experts that are focused on restaurant technology that are here to support you. And one size doesn't fit all. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but we're going to make sure that we find the best one for you. and use it that way. Don't build those relationships. Don't just use the POS pros as a scapegoat. Now, let me go back to our slides here, and let me answer a couple questions. What partners are closing with? All right. So I started out with why, they're using the POS pros, but we want to talk about some of the features and things that they're using to close the deals. And I'm going to tell some of those stories as we kind of bring this up. So number one is we are seeing a lot of success because I'm going to call it fast bar. It's what hot sauce calls it, but we have several systems that have this capability that are walking into restaurants that are using Toast, and we're able to give them a solution that makes like quick or hot sauce that helps them have a lot of open tabs and keep those tabs running and closing and making sure that they can, at the end of the night, close out and have no loss, and they're functioning and they're just extremely happy with how it works. And Micros has a solution. Aloha has a solution that's incredibly expensive that does some of this. We have several of those solutions that we are literally giving them the hardware. Do you realize that we're putting clusters and hot sauces and Paradise and quick POS in often for, fractions, 10% or 5% of the cost that if they've gone with another system. And we're on top of that, still saving them the money on their processing. And Fast Bar, if they have more than 20 tabs open at any time, this saves they can staff less and get the drinks out faster. And being able to optimize how they're working in the bar service, we've seen it. Now, I also will use this as a caveat. One of the things we've seen this last week, every bar wants to function in their own way. And especially when bars get to a place where they're processing 250, 300, 800,000, $1 million a month. And these are bars that are, they're $12 drinks. It's, the tabs are open and they have hundreds of dollars in those tabs. One of the things we've noticed is this, that even when you demo it, they know they don't like the system they have a lot of times. They don't like the cost. They don't like the support. They don't like the service. But they also, what we've seen is they have a way they want to do it. And so just this last week, Ben, one of our, is servicing a Wisconsin bar, a very successful bar. They were planning and had demoed and were installing Cluster. And how they wanted to manage their bar tab was not going to work. But this is the beauty of having, in fact, let me bring the slide up here. I'm going to go back to it. This is the beauty of having the POS pros behind you with all these systems. One of our partners was able to say, hey, okay, they were literally getting ready to go live, and then the bar says, I just don't want to do it. What are we able to do? Matt Proctor and his team swoops in, comes in and helps, says, hey, let's look at a couple other POS. They're looking at quick, they're looking at hot sauce, and we're able to transition them seamlessly with our team and be able to get them to the system and the way they want to do it. So when you walk into places that have huge amounts of bar service, we have a system that can help them. And it's not one size fits all, but we can make sure we find the system that fits it. What happens so many times, I hear so many complaints especially when I'm traveling, because I'll a lot of times walk in, especially when I'm having time and I'm by myself for a little while, sit down at the bar, order some food, order one drink, get talking to the bartender. I don't know how many times I hear how much they don't like Toast. We have a system that I think they will like more, and it can be incorporated to them. So back to, let me find my spots, and Fast Bar is certainly one of them. Now, there's another solution and thing that people are selling on, and we really saw this, and we're going to bring some more value to this here in the next couple months. We're going to create some content and create some more partnerships. But one of the things, and this is taken totally from 7 Shifts, because I just met with them. We're getting ready to partnership. They have integrations in a couple of our POS, including Cluster, and this is from their website. But we're seeing people who are able to say, hey, we can help you with how you manage your employees. And all of our systems have always been able to do clock in, clock out. They can do payroll management. A lot of them have integrations into things like ADP, or you can split out the CSV and send it to your accountant. It helps and saves them time. But in this time, restaurants, especially restaurants that are full service or quick service where they're doing 10 or more employees, and they have grown to 3 locations and they're floating to people, being able to manage and put controls back into the hands of the owners and the managers and run that through the POS and through something that's like 7 Shifts where it's integrated. It's a separate service, but it's something they can do. You can help your restaurants, save literally like 50 hours saved per month on administrative tasks. That's their average. This is what 7Shift's saying. We have several other systems that do this. All of our POS have some type of capabilities, but you can walk in and say, let's talk about how you're handling putting scheduling together. And I watch this with my kids now, because as they're working their jobs and they're having, they're not in hospitality right now, but they're doing jobs where they're having to switch things back and forth between their employees, or I got to take this time off, or I'm going to cover for this person. And you can create apps. 7Shifts does this amazingly, where they're actually taking it out of the manager's hands and having to call 3 different people and do it, where they're actually taking control, and you can actually help them save time and money. And what we're seeing is when you work on these systems, a lot of this is, there's several of these, and we're going to be bringing out training you on what these systems are. And 7Shifts is the first one we're working on putting hopefully in the next 3 weeks, you'll see a training on how 7Shifts works, but there's others out there. And not only that, it's a way for you to have another system, because you can actually make a referral. I think 7Shifts, I forget what they pay. I'm not going to quote it, but you're making monthly income off of that when you sell it to them, and on top of your residual. It's not a huge amount. It's not as much as your residual, but it's another little place where you can make some money. But importantly, you're actually adding value to how the businesses run themselves. I'm going to take a quick second and stop. I've been seeing all the comments come through here. Thank you so much for commenting in here. Several of you are there, and thank you, people. I'm going to, any questions you have, I'm going to do this at the end. So, and if you put a Q by the question, I'll see it first, but we have enough in here, I can see it, but we're seeing more and more. But as we close or continue on, at the end, I'll do all the Q&A, just so you know. All right. But as we go back, helping people manage their employees is one of the best ways that you can help a restaurant. And one of the biggest stresses, like 7Shifts does this actually, like some of these softwares that are plugging into our POS are actually helping them with recruitment, helping them with, not only are they doing payroll, but they're doing all of the other HR. You can do training modules, and you can do some of the background checks and things that they have to do. And a lot of times it all gets integrated and seamlessly into the POS, and it becomes part of that data. And we'll talk about that a little more. But I don't think, for a long time we've been selling on, here's the price, and I can do this for cheap. But now let's say we have a system, and it connects to services that are going to help you actually manage your employees. And when these restaurants are working so hard, I've met with so many restaurant owners in the last few months, and of all the stresses that are causing them pain, making sure they are taking care of their employees, having the employees they need, making sure they get the time off, managing the payroll, all the things that go into employee management is causing them a huge amount of stress. And so I hope that we can come alongside our restaurants and help with that. So that's certainly one of them. Now, these I want to go back to things that we have been doing. Toast, let's be honest, to begin with, Toast kicked our butt on this. And they certainly got the best system out there, but we're now seeing all of our systems, whether it's Paradise, which was one of our first systems we had with POS Pros, to Cluster now, have pay at the table and order the table capabilities. But it's not just it's a whole solution of how ordering is done. And thanks to COVID, some of the good things that came out of COVID is all the software companies figured out ways. They quickly, all of our systems have QR code ordering and the ability to quickly scan a QR code and be able to do the ordering right from someone's phone and be able to do the menu. And so a lot of restaurants are doing that. It's seen an uptick in the last 6 months of people doing that a little more. Just a second. Excuse me. And we're seeing, the online ordering certainly being that. And Quick POS brings this to us, the ability to do kiosk. We're going to have a special promotion coming out soon with their kiosk program. But we're seeing lots of ways to help restaurants with how they do ordering. And every one of our Quick, I have Quick on the screen. They have a wonderful new, they're using an iPad with a MagTech reader in a beautiful case that's as solid as you'll see it, being able to do pay and order at the table. And I really think that iPad mini is the best pay and order at the table device. Why? Because it's the perfect size for ordering versus, Toast's little sled, and a lot of our other systems are very similar. The buttons are so small. We're seeing modifier, especially on places that have huge amount of modifiers, that can be a struggle. I like the iPad side. And Cluster at the same time are using a 13-inch Surface Go. They're on the Windows side of things to be able to do order at the table, and it's a really good experience for order at the table. And then they're just using the A920s for the pay at the table and not using that small little screen, because we're seeing way too many errors and seeing returns of food and remakes that have to happen because of misfires on the modifiers. I didn't want onions. I did want onions. I wanted, pickled onions, not regular onions. And if being able to order on a larger screen and allowing the server to take from there helps things significantly. But even better, what also helps is people that are ordering on their phones and making sure they get it right. That helps too. There's all these things that we can help restaurants to do. And when it comes to ordering, we have all the solutions now. And we're seeing our partners being able to use, we've sold more kiosks in the last couple of months than we have for the last several years. The QR code ordering, we just helped, we're set up a Mexican ice cream restaurant with Cluster that was, I think they got installed. I don't think they've gone live yet, but I saw a training video. Dave, our partner that's setting that up, sent me a video of it and saw the video, and they're going to use QR codes so they can actually have online ordering ahead of time. And people can order and then come pick up their ice cream and it's all ready. And on top of that, they can walk in and scan it, or they can order at the counter if they want to. But they're using QR codes at each one of the locations to be able to do that. And it's a great way for them to quickly be able to serve that. What I took when we were in Chicago just last week, I took our partners over to Chinatown. And Chinatown is just a little bit, west of McCormick Place, and we walked over to Chinatown. We went to a boba tea place, one of their multiple bubble tea places there in Chinatown. All of them are using kiosks. It's the best thing. My local bubble tea place here and yogurt place is using kiosk. Why? Because it actually lessens the order issues when everybody's doing all the different add-ins, when people are having self-ordering, because they actually make sure it's right. And then it goes back to the either kitchen display or the kitchen printer, and they get that printing and the orders are done correctly. We can help with that. And Toast may have been there and one of the first ones there, and they were the ones who do it most elegantly with their handhelds. But let me tell you now, we can beat every time, and you can walk in with confidence that our ordering the table is just up to par to Toast, and all of our systems are finally getting there. And really with Cluster and Quick, we are very excited about what these 1-2 does right there for restaurants, and you can walk into confidence with that. So I won't go into tomorrow, but this is something we've been talking. Pay at the table is not new. It's been something we've been because of all the hardware, but I think we're finally crossing over with all of our top POS systems that you can walk into confidence, and the POS pros are walking with you. The other thing that we're seeing, so people are selling on big data. And this is something I'm still kind of putting up, but I put this slide in here to remind me to talk about this. The reason I think about one of the things I look when I go to the National Restaurant Show is what are the trends? What are the type of companies? And it's not cheap to go put a booth up. Minimal price, I think the smallest price is like $15,000 to have a booth. So, and over, I forget the number, 2,900, 3,000, I think it was 3,200 vendors, something like that. You can look it up. But we have a huge amount of vendors at the National Restaurant Show, and I was noticing how many of them were companies that we're going to actually bring to you as companies you can add on to our POS systems and be able to connect to our POS systems that are trying to help restaurants deal with their issue of big data. And what I mean by big data when it comes to restaurants is making sure that they're tying together how much they're paying for food services to what people are ordering, what's making the most money. Because at the end of what's happening in so many restaurants is they get so far down the road and they're like, man, I've focused all my time on selling this bacon cheeseburger that I make $2 on versus selling the filet mignon steak where I make $18 on it, and I've driven the margins even higher, and suddenly I'm making $22 every time someone orders that. Plus, when they order that, I also order a white, typically 3 cocktails instead of just 1 beer with the bacon cheeseburger, and starting to putting some of those things together and starting to be able to do the big data when it specifically looks at how the servers are tying together. I love some of these POS systems tied to some of these big data companies can say, okay, when this server is working, this is how much the average upsell is and the lift is for that restaurant. And we're just seeing more and more of that. And so I wrote this, but we've had one big sale in the last month where they were able to say, hey, we're going to be able to make sure all your data can get into this third-party software. So and a lot of this we're seeing. So we have Data Candy, connected to cluster POS. We have several of these new POS things that are connecting to these third parties, and we're going to be teaching more of that. But you can sell with confidence now with restaurants and independent restaurants that they can do what Starbucks is doing, what Pizza Hut is doing, what Outback Steakhouse, I'm trying to choose some big national chains that are multiple locations, what Cheesecake Factory is doing, and be able to manage all that data and say, okay, these are my customers. I'm going to be able to service and loyalty. We'll talk about loyalty in a second. We're going to be able to see which customers are spending the most money, what staff are working, we're making the most money because that staff's working, all these things that are working in big data. And when we're working with restaurants and you're talking about helping them maximize their profits, a lot of times, one of our POS vendors that we're hoping will come onto the EPX platform that I was meeting with recently, and they like to focus, say, hey, we're not a point of sale system. They have a point of sale, but we're helping provide lift and more revenue, and that's their biggest selling point. And I think more and more, maybe that's something we do. Hey, we're going to make sure that we create more profit for you, not just revenue, more profit, because we're going to help you with this POS. It's going to help you with your employees. It's going to help you with your inventory, all these things. And it's not just the system of pay at the table. It's not just the system of, hey, we're going to give you edge pricing, but we're also going to be able to help you walk through and help you identify which things, when you sell them, you make the most money on. And I don't think most restaurants do that. And if we can help them do that, they're going to last longer. They're going to process more dollars, and we're going to be happier 10 years from now because they've been doing business all this time with us. And maybe it's been on 3 different POS systems, all that. So, all right, back to slides. Big data. The next one is we're seeing a lot of them wanting to look at loyalty. And we're seeing that time after time that loyalty is extremely important to them. And every one of our POS now has some type of loyalty. Some are integrating into third-party systems, but the ability to not only see who your customers are, but maximize your customers is extremely important. And it becomes extremely important to make sure that the business you have today is also the business plus what you have tomorrow. And if you have 20 people visit today and 18 of them return in the next 2 weeks, versus 10 of them, what difference that makes versus, what a lot of times we just don't even know who's coming in and out of the door. And so we can create loyalty systems. I got a text message just this morning from one of our local coffee shops that is a local independent coffee shop. I think there are like 6 or 7 locations. None of them are extremely a part of my usual pathway, but I do get to them, and they said, you haven't been here for 6 weeks, I think it was. And it's like, well, I haven't been there, but it's a reminder. And I was like, next time I'm by, I'm going to make sure I go because I like that coffee shop. And it's that little bit of loyalty and customer management. So not only you're helping with your employees, but you're helping make sure that they're maximizing the profit from their current customers, because who is the best customer you have? The one you already have, and the repeat customer. And in restaurants, making sure that their first experience is as good as their last, not never a last experience, their 8th experience and their 12th experience, and helping drive that loyalty that every time you think coffee, you go to that place. And if you can increase every week 5 more repeat customers, 10 more repeat customers, 100 more, depending on the size of the restaurant, that drives the bottom line significantly, because restaurants are places that we go repeatedly. And it's not just a one-time unless we have a bad experience. And that part on the restaurant side, we're not. That's why we're choosing the best restaurants to serve across the United States. But loyalty is something that our partners are using. I wanted to end kind of a little bit on this restaurant, as we're really focusing on restaurants over the next several weeks. We're going to really over the end of the second quarter and the whole third quarter, we're going to focus a lot on how you can sell to restaurants. But I wanted to talk today just a few ideas that I've had thinking and watching our partners close deals. And the real thing, I call it the 3 R's. And it's not original. I never even called it 3 R's, but it's not like this is rocket science. But when you're closing restaurants, and we watch Toast, that, the burnt toast company out there based in Boston, Massachusetts, there in Cambridge, the MIT people, they came at restaurants built as a technology. They weren't restaurateurs trying to solve their problem like Quick is, which is why Quick is so awesome, because that Tom and the team there, they actually own restaurants. Tom and Ming, the husband and wife team that are the founders of Quick, they actually own multiple restaurants. They just opened a brand new sushi restaurant in the Woodlands Mall area. It's apparently amazing. I can't wait to go try it. I've heard it's amazing. And they're using their systems. So they are actually growing it. But Toast didn't grow that way. They just saw a need, and they were technologists, and they thought, okay, we can fix some of these problems by building a technology. And they have pushed us, and they are a real elephant in the room. That's for sure. They're a big gorilla here in the marketplace. That is, we're not hiding that they have owned a huge market share. But one of the things they've done extremely successfully is they have built relationships that ask for referrals that give a reward. And how they've done that is when they've gotten one toast into a business, they go to all the staff and they say, hey, we'll give you $250 if you introduce us to someone else that's a decision maker at another restaurant that may need. And they're not looking for referrals from the accountants. They're not looking for referrals. They use food services like Gordon Food Service and others. But they're looking for referrals from the employees of the restaurants that are using their technology. And I've wondered, what would happen if our partners do this more? If you would go out, and we'll figure out a way to even help this and organize this and automate it. But as you're putting and helping POS, and we're doing onboarding, and we're going to do some specific trainings on the different areas of restaurants and how to help with onboarding and how to help with demos and all that. We're going to do some specific training over the coming weeks. This is kind of my overview, and then I have more that I'm going to put together on this. But if you're building relationships, not just with the manager, but with the staff that might respond a little differently to a $250 reward. The person that actually is bartending at 3 different restaurants. And how many times do you go to a bar? I'm not here on Tuesday night. I'm over at this other bar. I worked there too. Or I'm a staff, and how many people are, especially because they're often, the average age for these full service restaurants, 18 to 25. They're, 21 to 30 is the average raise of a place with a full liquor license. And a $250 spiff, or let's beat Toast at the game. Toast doesn't have any way to give a residual. Maybe we'll give them a 5% of the residual. And if they connect you to 10 different businesses and create that. And really turning in and building relationships with not only the decision makers, but the friends of the decision makers for POS systems, for restaurants. They are a strong community. I go and gone to they always call them industry bars. And like on a Sunday night or a Monday night, they may have industry night at some of these bars. And you can go to a place and it's all the employees of the main restaurants of that city and that area and that neighborhood. And they all go and they have those nights where they're getting discounts. If you work and so we have a couple of the locations to do that in Indianapolis. Maybe you go and hang out with them and kind of learn what they're going through. Don't walk in and say, here's my flyer, my business card. But build those relationships. And then as you have opportunity, say, maybe you give me a referral. And if you give a referral, I'll give you $250. Or let me teach you exactly what a residual looks like, especially for those who are looking to build more and more campaigns. And start thinking about how you can build relationships. A lot of times we think, man, I need to find more owners of restaurants. Yes, that's great. And if you have a way to do that and get involved in local restaurant organizations but I would also think about building relationships. The food and beverage directors, usually they're not the top person in the restaurant, but they have a major voice in making decisions about how they make technology decisions. Great relationships to have. And figure out how to build a referral engine. I'd love to help brainstorm with anyone that would do that, and we'll talk about how to do that. But that's one of my things. How do you do this? Just start building relationships with these restaurants. Hearing the biggest service you have to restaurants is learning to have empathy for what they're going through, understanding what it takes to build restaurants, and getting past, if you've been here this whole time, the two problem that it's too much work, it's too much support, it's too damn complicated. Get past that 2 problem and get to the point where you're building relationships, because it's an integral pillar in building your business, your paymentpreneur business, and helping you build yourself as an example of, this is how I do business in my community. And restaurants are a great way to say, man, I love it when I can take my kids and say, hey, we were just traveling and we went to a restaurant. And I quickly looked up, hey, because I do this, I pull up our account of restaurants, I put the city that I am, and I try to find the restaurants that are already processing with us. And I go to those restaurants just because I want to see how they're doing, what POS they're using, how the systems are doing. I don't tell who I'm with or anything else, but I love being able to say, hey, this restaurant processes with us. And I tell that to my kids, but it's even a great thing for you as you're building your brand, building your business, as you continue to grow who you are. Restaurants are a great billboard for you in every community, and building relationships and looking for referrals and giving those rewards is extremely beneficial. The other thing though is I will say this. I love our partners. I am so thankful for our partners. But I gave you a little insight that I've learned that some of you are using our POS Pros team as cold, outreach to restaurants and giving out, and it's not only restaurants, sometimes other types of business, but I've seen a lot of restaurants, and you're giving out cold referrals. But so do better. Don't do that. And I take this, my 14-year-old daughter, going to be a freshman this next year. Just this morning, she said it to me, or no, it was last night, but she says this all the time, just do better. If I mess up, and I love it, I'm like, okay, I'll do better. And I'm saying this to our partners, to those paymentpreneurs, those who are working in the payments industry. When you're servicing restaurants, don't do the dine and ditch, or in this case, the close and ditch, where you're going into the restaurant, you sell them on a new POS. It's going to take a little extra support. But remember the 14 to 40 rule. The average, you're going to make an extra $30,000, $40,000 on these, the long-term, if you put the time in. So put the time in, do better, be involved, be active, be someone who's actually helping solve the problems of the restaurant. And I understand it is harder. And yes, sometimes you have to take calls at 2 a.m. to help them out. And it's a pain in the rear end. And I understand that. But do better, because you give our industry as a whole a bad name. It does take a little extra time. It's a little more work. But at the end of the day, the payoff is huge. So just do better. Be involved. Get those happy faces when they reviews. Make sure every restaurant you serve becomes a referral and a billboard for the next restaurant you're going to serve. And it's an opportunity to help the community, because remember what Danny Meyer said, it's the restaurants in our communities are the escapes for the rest of the people. You are doing business with these restaurants, helping them grow, helping them increase their revenue, helping them serve their staff, helping them increase profits. And you're serving your communities and helping them have an escape when they don't have to cook dinner that night, and they take that money that they're hard earned and they have spent time, I kind of vision, I realize that we're not quite in the industrial age that we are in, but there's still plenty of people that spend 40 to 50 hours doing manual hard labor. They make that money working much harder and much more physical jobs than I do. And 1 or 2 times a month, they decide to go out to eat, and they go to those restaurants and spend that money. And that is an escape and a time where they don't have to go into their kitchen and actually prepare the food for their family. And the kids are laughing off to the side. And I picture this and I say, every time we're serving a restaurant, we're serving our communities and giving those escapes to everyone who's there. And we can do better by making sure that we're investing in the restaurants that we're serving. And on top of that, we're going to be able to reward maybe referral partners. We're going to reward lots of other people, and we're going to be rewarding ourselves, because when we do better, we make more. And so I'll get off my stamping there. And at the end of the day, I put this slide in just to remind ourselves, just show up. Just show up. And so sometimes when you get to the airport and you're getting to the arrivals, and sometimes you just got to show up. And when you show up into restaurants and you ask questions and you start learning what their needs are and the struggles there are, and making sure you're engaging with them, we're seeing so many of our partners have huge success in restaurants because they just show up. You arrive, you're there. You're listening to the managers and the owners. You're helping meet their needs. And at the end of the day, I think that is why I love being part of PayProTech and watching our PPT partners continue to grow their restaurants and other businesses. But I just watch this, and I'm like, when you show up and you serve your community and you're helping these restaurants, you're going to see a change. And it's not easy. I understand. And sometimes things go wrong and they complain, and things don't, there's always that's always going to happen. No business is perfect. but I love helping restaurants. I just do. And so I'm going to look at our chat. I don't know what we've had. I know that I haven't been watching it specifically, but I am going to go to a little time of Q&A. And so I'm going to work here and bring over the chat and see. Let's see. So I apologize. Good job, everybody. Let's see if I see any questions here. Jason Horn here. I believe that's you over here. It's going to come up really small there. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger and put it down. I don't know if that helps a little cropping. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know how to do that right on the. It's trying to. Yeah, it doesn't. That's too. All right. I'm not going to play with all that and try to figure that out. But you can see, I'll read it here. Toast has become a real problem for me in my area. I have lost multiple deals and customers that are hoping that Quick POS will be my solution to that problem. And Jason, I would say this. Quick POS is certainly a piece of that. Cluster and Quick, I think, are the number 1, 2. They're 1A, 1B. I don't want to put them in a ranking. But there is nothing that Toast does that between those two products, you're not going to be able to do it. And the difference maker, and realize that Toast is now charging, we're seeing a lot more quotes for higher percentages. They're not doing differential pricing at this point. And we're seeing more and more for those who are not, they were giving all their hardware away. I just saw a quote yesterday where they're charging roughly about $2,200 per station. And we can always beat and give just as good a hardware on there. But Toast is we can compete with them. They're a big engine because they've been doing that referral and relationship engine for a long time, and they've built themselves as a trusted resource for restaurants. And so restaurants just think they can trust them. And, we're having to work on that. That is for sure. So I don't remember. I apologize. I wasn't watching the live chat. So somebody asked what POS did they end up using. I think that's probably when I was talking about that we're transitioning. And that transition is actively going on. I think they're going to go with Quick POS. But it might be hot sauce. It was back and forth. I think that was actually they just didn't like how Cluster it does open tabs, but they didn't like how specifically one way that it was done. And every POS is simple. There's some they're going to like Cluster over others, and But my main point is our POS Pros team is here to help and make that transition, and can even do it when the installation is happening. They're about to go live with a new system, and suddenly the restaurant's like, we don't want to do this anymore. And we were able to help that. Let's see. So I hear tons of complaints about Toast. I also hear people that love it, that you're always going to hear that. The bottom line is that their marketing is massive and their information everywhere about them. And their marketing is massive. They pay a huge amount. They're spending millions and millions of dollars every month on all kinds of, you probably see the ads in your stream because if you're in the merchant services industry, you're probably in their target and you're seeing the Toast ads in your Instagram feed or your TikTok feed and you may see them, they advertise on all the top podcasts that are out there for restaurants, and they're in all their main restaurant feeds, and they had a giant booth in National Restaurant Show. They are out there. But we can 5 years ago, they had a huge head start on the technology. The technology is no longer a head start. They are not ahead of us. In fact, we have several things that some of our solutions do that they can't do. Our drive-through management and Cluster is better than their drive-through management. Our menu boards and Mint are better than their menu board management. We have things that we do better, not by we mean our corporate, we are POS Pros and all the POS systems we work with. We have things that we do better. But at the end of the day, that is it. Certainly we understand they are good. A lot of Clover in your area and Shift4. Certainly. I mean, Clover, we are not a Clover shop. I understand Clover is another brand, especially in the QSR world. You're not going to see them a lot in the full service as much. Certainly they're trying to. Clover is, but I've never met a large restaurant. These are the big restaurants that I have never, ever, and this is probably in the hundreds of restaurants that I've walked into over the last 10 years that are, if they're using, and they're a large restaurant and they're using Clover, they're not happy. I've never met anyone who's happy. And we replace Clover more than anything else because, especially when we're talking big restaurants, which is what this is about today, we see that. Now, SkyTab and Shift4, certainly a valid system. We talked about a couple weeks ago that, possibly the Revel acquisition from Shift4 if they are closing with that, they're making a focus on that, and some of you sell for them. We understand that. We know we're trying to win you over and say, look, having, shift 4 is going to have one system. That's all they really want to have is SkyTab. And a lot of these places, and our value prop to you is, hey, we have something that's equal to SkyTab, and we have 8 different systems, and some of them do different things better. And we're going to walk alongside you and make sure everyone gets the best one. And what I like about some of what we've seen in the last 6 months is we're seeing places where, because of our focus on cluster, where we're seeing, suddenly we have 5, 7, 10. I think our largest in a metro area is 10 right now because it's new. But we're seeing little micro spots where we're seeing little green dots pop up because we have enough locations where they're spreading. And we know that happens because like Toast, why does one business go with Toast? Because the 5 next to them did. And it's a domino effect. And we want to help you build that domino effect. And if you have ideas, anything we can do, we're here to help you do that. So which system will AB7 just be integrated? It is integrated today with Cluster. I'm not going to name the other system, but I know 2 other systems that are working on it. When those come, we'll be doing it. But 7 Shifts does that, and we're going to be doing a training on that very soon. So certainly on 7 Shifts. And Jason jumped in there saying, I totally agree with this, that I think Toast has grown too fast and their customer service is a huge complaint. And that is true. And we're trying to help make sure. Here, the biggest thing, so this is what I loved yesterday. I was on with 2 of our partners that had just done a cluster install, and a couple little hiccups on the install. That just sometimes happens. The restaurant didn't communicate a couple things that they had wanted. We were able to figure it out, fix it out. But at the end of the phone call, one of the things I heard from the partner was, but every time I called Cluster, they picked up the phone. And that's what we want to hear. We're not perfect at it. We're not perfect at it at PPT, but it sets a significant difference than what's happening in these places that have gone venture backed and are publicly traded companies like Square, Toast, and their support just can't scale to keep the profit margins and their investors happy. And our independent POS systems that are serving tens of thousands of restaurants and are in all 50 states, they're able to do it because they're able to scale, and the profit margin that they need to have to be able to be profitable is less than what you need to be a publicly traded company. And what does Toast do when their investors say, hey, you got to tighten that belt? They cut 500 jobs and 250 of them are customer support, and that's where it goes. So see several comments. Quick is my favorite. What is the best solution we have for pay order at the table? We have multiple solutions. I'm not going to say there's one best. Everyone kind of takes a different take at it. They're all really good, and you kind of get to say, hey, help choose which is the way you want to do it. So, Quick has the iPad that I mentioned with a MagTech and a really, really sturdy case all put together. You can't take it apart easily. It's the best. I really, really like it. I've seen it at all the trade shows. You're going to be in New Orleans at SEA this next week. Go to their booth and see it. It's amazing, and I really like it. Cluster uses a larger screen on a Surface Go for ordering, and uses the PAX A920 for the pay. So they use 2 different devices. And I've heard some complaints from our partners saying, wow, everybody wants one device. But the end of the device, what they want is flexibility and usability. And we get to sell them on what's the best way to do it, but it's a really good solution. And the ordering, like I said, I like the larger screens for the ordering. I'm now 47 years old. I occasionally need, I've worn glasses and contacts since I was 14. My eyes are tired. I'd like things to be a little bigger than, 2-point font on those A920s that I sometimes see. I'm like, yes, I want to add pickles, and I really, really want extra pickles, but that's another click, and maybe, it just becomes complicated, I think, on those small screens. It can be done. It's being done. I understand that. Servers are usually 22 years old and much more, their eyes are better than I am. But those are 2 systems. That's where our POS pros can come in. They can help you walk through. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. We will do a thing. And you can also look at we've done specific stuff on Order on the Table on our POS Uncensored. If you're on our YouTube channel right now, you've been watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching the clips later on Instagram or some other place, you can go over to the YouTube, look up POS Uncensored, and there's an Order at the Table episode where we just cover how order and pay at the table is being done. So data is important. I'm just going through all these comments, looking. So, yep, I like that. the eye of the beholder. 7 shifts is great. Yes, it is. I'm really impressed. I'm just now getting exposed to 7 shifts. They're a great company so far to work with. They're really, you just get vibes with companies, and we have some that obviously, I can tell they care about what they do. They're taking care of their employees, it seems like, which means, and then their employees then are taking care of their customers. And I think that is I like when I get that vibe, and I will, I don't speak negatively of ones I don't get the vibe from. You won't probably even hear me mention them. That probably says something, but 7 shifts is one that I'm getting a good vibe for. Somebody asked, I thought we were going to cover cluster and its features. What can it do? Strengths and weaknesses. That was not I'm sorry you thought that on this particular. This is not a cluster. This is specifically focused on restaurants. But go to mypapertech.com. Go to the upper left-hand corner. I don't have set up to do screen share right now. Go to the upper left-hand corner. Click on the menu button. Click on POS systems. Click on the cluster. And on that cluster page, you're going to see cluster office hours. We have 6 hours, I think, of total training in that cluster office hours. We'll cover nearly every feature, and we have more coming to that. We're going to do that with some of our other POS systems. But cluster, there's all that information. And we will have another cluster office hours in 2 weeks. We're taking it with travel to New Orleans next week. Been in Chicago. We haven't had a cluster office hours, but we're going to have another one here too. So we have lots of great opportunities. And so we're going to continue to bring that. And if you have ideas of content you want to have put together, let me know, and we will work on that. And this one was specifically, and we're going to do several of these, just focused on the general concept of how to help you and convince you to sell to restaurants. And like we said, we've seen it going down. Our volume, our number of merchants, our number of partners is up and to the right, but the percentage of restaurants and our restaurants is growing kind of up and to the right. But we're seeing the percentage of restaurants, we just know you're giving us less restaurants, which means you're focusing less on restaurants. And we think that's something you should still do and not be fearful to it. And we believe it's very worth it. Jason has a sell sheet that compares Toast to others. We are working on that. It's been taking way too long for this. It's something I'm working with all of our POS vendors to do. They're all scared not scared is the wrong term. They don't like putting out large lists of all their features, because their features change. I mean, they're putting updates every 2 weeks, and they're always scared to put it out there. But we are putting that together. I don't know what percentage I'm done with it, probably about 50%. I've been personally working on that project, and it's something I would like us to see. We used to do it. If you've been with Papertech in a long time, at one point when we had a thing we called the Diamond Ring back in the day, when we first launched the POS Pros team, at that point we were just calling it the POS team. And we put together a 11 by 17 laminated, I think it was 7 pages front and back of every POS at that point we were serving. Some of them that we no longer sell. They've got some of them, like Revel was on that list, and NCR Silver, and some things that we don't have the capability to sell anymore. And it had every feature that everyone had and checkboxes by everyone. That took like 9 months. So we're trying to come up with a better way to do it. And one of the ways we're doing it is Toast puts out their feature in the comparison feature table. We're taking that, going to each one of our POS and asking them to identify which one they do. We'll have that done as fast as I possibly can. I'm not going to put a timetable on it, but it's something I work on every week, trying a little bit move that forward. So Jordan Maddock, you remember that? Yes, I wish I had one. I don't have one. I gave them all away. We created this really cool. If anybody has that old PO, I would love to have. We created some old, like when we were doing physical things back in the old days when we actually printed things and put them in your hands instead of all the digital stuff. I'd love to have that. I read that. So, but we're going to work on a sell sheet for sure on that. And we're looking at I bought a domain called, I forget what it is. What did I call it? I think it's choosepos.com. Don't quote me on that. I will put it out there. But the idea was that it'd be a de-identified domain that would just list features of each POS compared to each other. There'd be a quick list for you to do. That's my long-term dream. The more you talk about it and keep bugging me about it, the better chance it goes. I call it the, be friendly about it. But when you nudge me, I get things done. We have a lot of projects going on. We have a lot of partners. We keep our team very slim and stimps because I keep our bonuses, our residuals high. So we don't have a lot of, extra time. We work a lot of hours, but the more you nudge on things, we realize what things are important. We put it together. So, all right. I went over an hour. I was thinking this would be about a 40-minute one. So Hopefully you've enjoyed your time. What I would say is, if you, one call to action, whether you're, I know a few of you may not be PaperTech partners. Maybe you're watching this considering whether you want to work with PaperTech, but I would just really love it if you would reach out to me, and you can email me, nmanahan@papertech.com, and I would love to keep this communication going. Like everything, I always say, I say this and I'm going to be on the road for the next week traveling. But it's work travel. So just know sometimes I'm a little slower responding to emails. If it's an urgent thing, something you need to just bounce it up on that email again. I do not mind that at all. I will get to every email. Sometimes they get buried. We get a lot of them. But anything you want, any way we can help you, because we really believe that restaurants should be one of the pillars of growing your payments business. As you are, continuing along your paymentpreneur journey, as you're growing, as you're increasing your residual and growing your teams, restaurants are a great way to do that. And it's a good thing to be involved in. And we're here to help you do that any way we can. Hopefully you found this helpful. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another restaurant related training. It'll be noon on Wednesday in 2 weeks after we get back from SCAA. If you're going to be in New Orleans, make sure you email me and I'll get you the link. I can't remember that. I should have had that on this, but most of the people watch this afterwards, but so we know that. But we're going to be on Sunday the 9th and Wednesday the 13th. We're hosting events while we're in New Orleans, and we're going to be there a good portion of us. Danny will be there Monday through Thursday. I'm getting in on Sunday. Brian Linky's going to be there. Paul Kent's going to be there. Josh Brown's going to be there. Jen Sales is going to be there. Pam Bailey's going to be there. As soon as I started listing names, I feel like I forgot somebody and already in my list. But a good part of our PPT team will be there. We would love to meet you and connect with you. And thank you so much for those who already partner with PaperTech, and those who don't, email me and let's talk about how we can get you in as part of the PaperTech family. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye everybody.